I want to introduce a concept of, foods that you eat and foods that you finish. It's interesting because it probably something came to mind. There's certain foods that you'll just eat and other ones that you cannot stop eating until you finish. And I would argue that probably something that you can eat and not have to finish it would be a green light food. And majority of the foods that you finish are those yellow light, those red light foods. If you don't know what that means, go back to the traffic light video and you'll understand it a little bit more. But the whole purpose is that if you start, you can't finish with a food that you finish. And it's not the same for a food that you eat. For most cases, a food that you finish is a packaged food. When's the last time you remember sitting in front of the TV and finishing a whole bag of chips, a whole bag of popcorn that was caramelized, a whole box of nuts, a whole package of something? When's the last time that you finished 3 bunches of lettuce in one sitting that wasn't created into a salad? So foods that you eat tend to be whole, and you're not likely to sit down in front of a movie and have 2 chicken legs and then go back and try to finish the rest of the chicken. There's multiple reasons why that happens, but there's foods that you eat and foods that you finish. There tends to be various tastes with foods that you eat, whereas the foods that you finish tend to be hyper-palatable. They're very tasty. You're likely not to be able to stop. There's a whole commercial for Lay's, like, bet you can't have just one. That's the whole point. And oftentimes, when you're finishing foods, almost like you can't stop, it's another type of hunger. It is not the physiological hunger that you're satisfying with foods that you eat. So if you can start to focus a little bit more on foods that you can eat, rather than foods you just finish, you'll start to understand what lines up with your goal. The foods that are salty and sweet and have a good texture, like those packaged foods tend to do, those are foods that you finish. You sit there and you can't just have one cookie and that's it. And there are people that are out there that can do that. I don't want to discount that, but the whole point is that you can have an apple and stop. You're not going to all of a sudden finish the whole bunch. And if you can set up your situation where you have more foods that you eat rather than foods that you finish, you are going to be successful. So I want you to think about it. What are the foods that you can eat and walk away from, and foods that you finish? And if your goal is to gain weight, whether that be most likely weight or fat, muscle or fat, then you go to have more foods that you can finish. Whereas if you're not, then foods that you eat, because those tend to be nutritious, higher volume, and they'll fuel what you need, and you're likely to be less hungry as well, but you won't overeat. And that's really the difference between foods that you just eat and foods that you finish.